There's like, how did you let that slip up?
Yeah, that's really talk about poor communication.
And then he texted me back after I told him I went. He was like, OMG. And I was like, okay, who says OMG? I don't. Who says OMG? I don't know. A stupid realtor. He didn't tell them. He didn't tell them that there was gonna be an open house at the time. So I don't know.
How did she know how to do that? How did it?
So did you hand out?
I think it's just like our
brochures
typical
or
training.
do board on?
Yeah, I door knocked the neighborhood. I put up all those
Here.
signs. You made it.
I did, I went fast, but.
What's this class again?
I don't know.
It's Michael's class.
Short sales and foreclosures. Girl, one of the officer leads.
Yeah.
He makes like $2 grand a month, and he told me that he wants to buy 12 units. And I was like, there ain't no way you're gonna buy 12 units.
That's not necessarily true.
But here's the thing, I was like, it might not be like super realistic, but like, let's see what's out there, let's see like what we can do. And we were looking at prices and he was like, okay, that's not something I can do. Because at first he said, I wanna buy a duplex for like 600 grand. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I was like, how do you plan on paying for that? And he was like, well, I have $300,000 that I can put down. And then I'm hoping to get $300,000 in a loan. And I sent him to a lender and the lenders talked to him and he has like nothing in the bank. So he doesn't have $300,000 to put down and he can't really get proof of what he wants. So now I'm trying to talk to him because he was like, oh, I might just want to go into another state, but it's like,
Yeah.
That's weird.
You know,
well, how do you say that you have 300 grand
Yeah.
to put down and you don't have a loan?
Well, while Wayne's working out the tech, why don't we talk about short sales and foreclosures?
Okay.
What do you guys know about the process?
Nothing.
Nothing. Well, what have you
Foreclosures,
heard
I know
about?
if you don't pay your bill, they come and take it from you.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, that's what we know.
Sale is trying to sell it as fast as you can before the bank sells it. Or like getting.
Is it for like?
Well, you're gonna be
bank
short your loan, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Short your loan.
You're gonna short your loan. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna short your loan.
What's
What she
that?
said, you're gonna short your loan?
You're upside down.
Yeah, you're not gonna get.
So if you owed the bank 100 grand, but you were only able to sell your home for 50, you just shorted the bank by 50 grand.
Oh, okay, I never knew what a short sale was.
Yeah.
So then how much that particular, you're still indebted to the bank?
You're still indebted to the bank?
Well, oftentimes when you do a short sale, we try and negotiate where the bank's not gonna come after you. Because yes, the bank, you signed a promissory note to the bank that I agreed to pay back 100 grand. And in this case, the bank only got paid 50,
Right.
so you still owe the bank 50.
Right.
So in some short sales, you're gonna release, the bank will agree to release the collateral, but they're still gonna go after you for the debt.
Right,
So that could happen.
right.
Your job as an agent, and what I've done in the past is I've negotiated with the bank and I've negotiated what we call a full release. So not only bank, do you agree to lose 50 grand, you're not gonna come after my client for that 50. Right,
How do they do that?
they have done it, yeah.
Michael, does that full release also eliminate the 1099 that the bank can send them?
Nope. So it's just like if you have a credit card, and you stop paying on the credit card. And so the credit card wrote off your $10,000 debt,
Right.
but they could send you a 1099. And so you owe taxes on that 10 grand that you just forgiven. In this case, your mortgage company that wrote off the 50 can send you a 1099 for 50 grand and you owe taxes on that 50 grand.
Oh, wow.
As
So you don't owe the 50 grand, but you do still owe your taxes on it.
You just got an extra 50 G's in income.
Is a short sale better for a bank than a foreclosure?
Well, the argument with the bank is, okay, bank, if you're gonna foreclose on me, what makes you think you're gonna sell it for any more than what I can right now?
Right.
So you just foreclosed on me, you had to clean out the house, you had to change the locks, you had to hire an agent, and the agent is most likely gonna sell it for the same price that I'm trying to sell it for right now,
Right.
right?
Right.
Unless bank, you wanna go in there and paint the house and change the carpet and do this and do that, then maybe you can sell it for more.
Right.
But a bank's not in the business of doing that. right? The bank is in the business of turning money.
Right.
So in the bank's mind is, okay, you're right, I agree with your assessment, right? So the bank, before they agree to do a short sale, they're gonna hire a third party to give them, they call it a broker price opinion, right? So they're gonna hire another realtor and say, look at this listing. Is this list price accurate? Or are they trying to screw us, right? Because maybe this agent listed the home for 100 grand less than what it could sell for, and they're trying to sell it to their friend.
Right.
Right, so now their friend is walking into a deal and they're gonna flip it and make 100 grand.
Oh, okay. Or they
Right.
might be buying time by putting it on the market for 700 grand and knowing it's a $400,000 house.
Yeah.
And they're just buying time, because the bank's like, oh, okay, it's on the market.
So, but the reasoning to the bank is, look, you're not gonna sell it for any more than what I am now. So you might as well take the loss,
Right.
so you can get your money back faster, so you can loan it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Charger, set it down. So,
No, because I had just charged it before I left, so I was like, oh, I need my charger.
It's just that.
Just because it was just for that.
You go dead.
Okay, so everybody can see the Colorado foreclosure timeline, right? So one term that drives me crazy in Colorado is people talk about pre-foreclosure. There's no such thing as a pre-foreclosure. Either you're in foreclosure or you're not in foreclosure, right?
Yeah.
This whole thing of pre-foreclosure, I think it's kind of hokey. How does Zillow know you haven't made your mortgage payment? They don't. They're guessing.
It doesn't show up on your credit.
Well, how does Zillow have access to your credit report,
True.
right?
How do they guess?
Yeah, how did they guess?
How much it was worth, how much they think it's worth and how much you bought it for?
So here, if you look, maybe Zillow's looking at your notice of default, right? And then they're saying it's a pre-foreclosure.
Because
Right.
is that a public record?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But your notice of election to demand, that's when you're officially in foreclosure.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is important to remember, notice of election and demand, right? And I'm gonna tell you why, as we get further into the class, how it impacts you as a broker when you're buying and selling a home that's in foreclosure,
Okay.
right? So don't let the term pre-foreclosure trip you up or anything like that. What's important is, has a notice of an election demand been filed? If it has, then we'll talk about how it impacts you as real estate brokers, okay? So notice of election demand gets filed. Then you go to a Rule 120 hearing, right? Rule 120 hearing is the bank has to prove to a judge that yes, we haven't been paid for X amount of time. Give us the permission to foreclose on this house. Because the homeowner could show up and be like, this is BS. Here's all my canceled checks. They should not be foreclosing on me,
Wow.
right? And the judge would be like, yeah, I agree with you. You don't get to foreclose on the guy.
Does that happen?
I doubt it,
I was gonna say.
but it could,
Oh, sure, yeah.
right? I would say you probably don't see it happening with an institutional lender.
Yeah,
Like a Wells Fargo isn't gonna do it.
okay, that
But-
makes sense.
but
Something
let's
more
say-
private.
Let's say a private lender,
Yeah.
you know, Joe Schmo loaned Lisa 100 grand.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And Lisa's been making her payments to Joe Schmo religiously. And Joe Schmo's like, damn, this house is 200 grand in equity now. I'm gonna try and foreclose on Lisa so I can take that house back and go sell it and make 200 grand, right?
Got you, yeah, that makes sense.
This is where Rule 120 can protect Lisa.
Okay.
Make sense?
As long as Lisa has all her documentation.
Yeah, if Lisa's been paying him in cash, she might be in trouble.
Right.
Okay,
Trying to teach us how to do dirty business here.
trying to teach you guys the red flags so you don't do
Yes,
dirty
dirty
business. So what's the timeline how long does a foreclosure generally take, right? So foreclosure period, 110 to 125 days. Okay, is generally how long it takes from a notice of election demand is filed until you go to foreclosure sale. Once it goes to foreclosure sale, homeowner no longer owns the home. Right, that day it went to foreclosure sale, homeowner became a tenant.
Is that still, that time frame, is that still like that due to like COVID and stuff? Is that still the standard?
That's still the standard. Now, that doesn't mean that timeline can't change. So Gwen mentioned maybe these guys are buying time. So as real estate brokers, you represent a seller that's in foreclosure, right? And you know your foreclosure sale date is coming up, right? So what we can do is we can search the public trustees records. You would go to the public trustee, so whatever county the house is in, you go to the public trustee, so we'll say this is Arapahoe County. Okay, foreclosure and property search. Let's just go to foreclosure reports, let's find a home that's in foreclosure. So we've got, let's just look at the first one, right? You've got Ryan Joseph Raleigh. Lives at 24767 East Wyoming Place. The current lender is the Money Source. Looks like he first went into foreclosure in 2019. And he owes the bank right now. The bank is bidding, right? When it goes to foreclosure sale, the bank will bid $415,930.80. Right? Let's say you're like, I want that house because this is a $600,000 house. Right, and he only owes $415. I'm gonna go bid on it because I want to end up with title. Right, so let's dig into this property a little bit. So 2, 4, 7, 6, 7.
I thought it was Murphy.
And you did a foreclosure report, is that what it was?
Okay, so we go to basics. Any D date. So he went into foreclosure August 16th of 2019. So he's been stalling this out for years, right? Maybe he filed for bankruptcy, whatever. You could file for bankruptcy like date before. So you've got your currently scheduled sale date of December 7th, which is tomorrow, right? He could go file for bankruptcy today and push that date out even further. Right? So for whatever reason, maybe he's been talking to the bank. You know, let me get a loan modification. Give me more time. I'm trying to sell it, whatever, right? You can negotiate with the bank. So you guys as brokers have a seller that's in foreclosure. You would work with their lender as well as the foreclosing attorney. And, you know, like, look, we're on the market or we're under contract and this is when we're scheduled to close. Maybe he's scheduled to close December 15th, right? Don't take it to sell on December 7th. Why not give me till the 15th so I can sell the house and you'll get your money? Right, so these are conversations that you can have with the lender. But all this information is public record, right? So it looks like it's an FHA loan. He originally owed $358, right? Outstanding principal balance was $355 as of the date of foreclosure. So between foreclosing and now, he's tacked on what? $415, so like 65 grand in fees and interest and back payments and stuff.
Like these, they don't stop all that stuff. They want all their money.
All it keeps ticking. So that's something to remember as you're working with the seller that's in foreclosure, right? Every month you didn't make a payment, that payoff gets larger.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So you can't list a seller and say, let me see a mortgage statement to see what you owe. Right? And maybe his mortgage statement says he owed $355, but he hasn't made a payment since 2018. Right? So you can't, maybe the house is only worth 400 grand. You've got to pay off the mortgage company $415 plus cover your commissions, plus cover title insurance. And we don't know if there's any second mortgages or whatever, right? So you've got to factor all that in when you're working with these sellers that are in foreclosure.
Mhm.
Because he might owe a heck of a lot more money than what his original outstanding balance was.
He decided not to pay the roofer.
Oh, mechanics lien.
You know? So that's why it's important to order an O and E on all of your listings, right? It pulls up bankruptcy. So look at how many bankruptcies this dude filed. That's why this thing's taken since 2018.
Oh, okay. Because every time he does the bankruptcy, it pauses it or,
Yeah.
okay.
And
And then
here's,
what, he has a certain amount of time or?
yeah, they have, now the creditor, the lender, is now in bankruptcy court. I can't do anything until the bankruptcy court tells me what I can do. Right? You file for bankruptcy protection. If you're getting garnished and you file for bankruptcy, they can no longer garnish you.
Yeah.
Right? So here's the law firm. Right, so it tells you, hey, you can call Janeway Law Firm and say, hey, Janeway, I just listed this house on Wyoming, right? You know, I'm working with Ryan to help get his home on Wyoming sold. Who, you know, it says David's probably the guy at the law firm that's just filing it. There's probably a different attorney that's working the case. But you say, who's the attorney? Right? And then you start building a relationship with the attorney. This way, when the buyer's loan was like, oh, the lender needs like another 2 weeks, you can call Janeway Law Firm, talk to the attorney, be like, hey, don't take this thing to foreclosure sale tomorrow. I need 2 more weeks. Right? If you've been proactively communicating with them, they're probably gonna work with you. But if all of a sudden they've never heard from you and this thing's going to sale tomorrow, do I really trust you have a closing in 2 weeks? Right? Any questions so far?
Oh, yeah, I see how it says restarted case.
Mhm. So you can also get with a seller and the seller's in foreclosure, but it's early enough in the process. It might be 10 grand to stop the foreclosure, and they've got the money. So you can file what's called an intent to cure. So you've got to file an intent to cure by the deadline. And then they're going to say, here's how much it's going to cost to stop the foreclosure and bring your loan current, and then you just start making payments as normal.
What is that dollar amount, basically, like all the fees and all that kind of money?
Did they negotiate that at all?
Doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
I
If
think
somebody
so.
has $10,000 sitting in a bank, why haven't you just been paying your?
Or maybe you borrowed it from mom and dad,
Okay.
or
Or if
whatever.
he hasn't been paying that long, then maybe he's stacking it up,
Good.
But still.
probably, yeah.
But let's say he's like, you know, you come across a client, and the client's like, I wanted to save my house, I want to keep my house. Right? What's your intent to cure deadline? If your intent to cure deadline's passed, well, then you call the attorney and be like, hey, he wants to save his house. Can we go and file an intent to cure? You guys send a secure statement, we'll pay the money, and then this person gets to keep their house. Right? But I think this is a good guideline, right? You meet with a client or, you know, whatever, you're talking with a client's like, look, I'm in foreclosure, but I want to save my house. I just don't know what to do. Right? You can file an intent to cure. They send you a statement. Here's what you owe, right? Detailed statement. Here's what you owe. You pay the money by today, this foreclosure stops.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
This would happen before bankruptcy, ideally.
Well, no, because he's already filed bankruptcy.
Theoretically.
It could, or it could happen
Yeah.
during bankruptcy.
Okay.
Right? You file for bankruptcy protection, so it stops the foreclosure. And then now you're paying the money off to stop it completely. This gets a little bit complicated. So it's gone to foreclosure sale, right? This seller, he hasn't cured his mortgage or anything. It went to foreclosure sale. So in the house that we're looking at, it goes to sale tomorrow for $415. Goes to sale tomorrow, that's when the homeowner becomes a tenant. And then you have to start evicting them, right?
So that process takes
Time.
Well, so we can dig deeper into it where, I mean, it can get really complicated, right? So let's say this house has a second mortgage,
Yeah.
right? After the first mortgage goes to foreclosure sale, the second mortgage has what's called redemption rights. Second mortgage company can say, well, hey, we're owed 100 grand. And there's 100 grand worth of equity in this house. So I'm gonna redeem my rights, I'm gonna pay off the first mortgage. And then I'm gonna take title of the house, I'm gonna sell the house, so I can get my 100 grand back. Right, so me as the second mortgage company, assuming it went to foreclosure sale for 415, I'm gonna pay off his bid of 415, I'm gonna take title of the house, I'm gonna sell off the house to satisfy my debt. Right? And then same thing, right? Once I've redeemed, I get title, then I now have to start the eviction process. So you don't get title, whoever bids at foreclosure sale doesn't get title right away. Right, because you have to wait and see if anybody else is gonna redeem, if there are, right? There might only be one mortgage, in which case I can file for title right away. But if there's other junior lien holders, well, then you have to wait and see if any of those junior lien holders are gonna file for redemption before you can file for title.
Meanwhile,
He's
the
living in
tenant
here
is
for
living
free,
there for free, right? While everybody's paying it out.
better believe it. Yep.
What was free is get lots of junior liens on your property.
Okay, and then, so yeah, the eviction process takes about 30 days. Does that make sense? Any questions on foreclosures?
Do you ever use this as like a prospecting tool? Like
Sure.
to go look around for,
Yeah, we'll pull those reports and we'll mail those people that are in foreclosure.
yeah,
And we'll say, hey,
what do you
you've
do?
got equity in your house, you can sell your house and pull that equity out.
Right.
So, I mean, you guys have computers in front of you. What's this house on Wyoming worth?
Just get still.
What's the address?
24767.
When did he buy it?
What's that?
When did he buy it?
18, I think.
Yeah.
What? 18 and then he went.
2017.
No.
So his deed of trust is dated 9/8/17.
There's not refi, it might not be purchasing.
Well,
But
if it was,
that's the
no,
loan.
this is if he refied, this is his current mortgage. That's in foreclosure.
That's what I mean. It didn't necessarily mean he only lived there a year and stopped paying. This could
Right.
have been a
Oh, yeah,
refi loan.
Yeah, he could have bought this thing in 2000
Yeah.
and refied in 17. Right.
Oh, yeah, what is it worth?
I don't have the full address.
24767 East Wyoming Place, Aurora, 80018. I had a feeling it's Murphy Creek. I saw the 80018.
What's the address again?
24767, right?
24767
I'm going to her
East Wyoming Place.
Evil.
Oh, no, I have to do that.
Zillow says. Yeah.
522.
Okay, so let's go with Zillow. Say 525. This thing's going to sell tomorrow for 415. Do you think an investor might be interested in this house?
Yeah.
Wait, but
Hundred something
Oh.
in equity. Oh, you have to find an investor.
Because all I have to do is tomorrow I can go to, you want to do some research, right? You want to have your title company pull an O&E, see exactly what, are there any secondary judgments and HOA liens, like what all are we looking at on this house? Okay, because HOA liens in Colorado are super liens. Do you know that? You know what a super lien is?
I mean, they take priority.
They take priority in front of the first mortgage.
That's dumb.
well, and I have comps that it
And that's
could be
across
anywhere from
Colorado?
475 to 545.
So let's say you're an investor, like I could sell this house for 545. There's 100 grand equity in this house. There's no other liens or anything on this house. There's 100 grand equity on this house. All I gotta do is I gotta go bid $1 over what the lender's bid is. And if I'm the only one bidding, I just bought this house for say $417,000.
Wow.
See what I mean? So if you're working with investors, there's some opportunity here, right? Now, what happens if there's multiple investors there and we're all competing after Wyoming and this house sells for 500? What happens to the difference between 415 and 500? So it's an auction.
Right.
Tomorrow, when this thing goes to sale,
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick off the option and bid $1 more than what the bank is.
Right.
But let's say Gwen's there, you're there, right? And the three of us are competing for this house. And you say, okay, I'll bid 420. Gwen says 430,
Right. We get to 500.
we get to 500. So what happens to the difference between, what happens to the $85,000 between 415 and 500?
Well, you guys just argued away that equity, right?
We did.
Who says who gets the money?
Well, the bank's only owed 415.
Oh, that's right, so the owner. No, or unless there's liens and stuff, then they would get paid that.
So let's look at the next one real quick. Right, this house on Huron Way, the total debt was 201, but the lender's bidding a deficiency of 40,000, so they're only bidding 161. So what that deficiency is the lender says, well, I don't think I can recover. If I foreclose and get title to this house, I'm probably only gonna sell the house for 160. But I'm owed 200.
So
Right,
we're upside down 40 grand.
so we're upside down 40 grand. So I'm preserving my right to go after the borrower to the tune of 40 grand.
Hmm.
So even though this house went through foreclosure, this homeowner will still owe the bank 40 grand after the foreclosure.
The bank's hoping that an investor will come in and buy it, so the bank doesn't have to do anything. All they need to do is start their proceedings to
Collect on the 40 grand.
without having to take back the house. Banks aren't in the.
So you might have a seller that's like, I'm just gonna let it go. I'm just gonna walk away. You might not be able to, because if they bid a deficiency, and in this case, it's 40 grand. Sometimes the deficiency is 300 grand.
I mean, you're still on the hook for that 300 grand.
Yeah.
And you don't have a house.
Wow.
So it's not always easy for a seller to just like, I'm just gonna walk away.
Right.
Right.
That's depressing.
So now that we've talked about the foreclosure process and what a foreclosure is, let's talk about short sales. So we started talking about short sales a little bit. I would say a short sale is similar to the bottom scenario. Right? I can only sell this thing for 160, but you owe 200 grand. So I'm gonna ask the bank to take a $40,000 short. And on top of that, I'm gonna ask the bank to give you a full release so they don't come after you for that 40 grand.
You have to do that before this point where it's already on
Not
auction, right?
necessarily.
No?
This homeowner might call you, Margaret might call you today, and say, can you list my house? And you're gonna say, well, you're gonna do some research, like I see it goes to foreclosure sale tomorrow. Let me call the attorneys and see if they're gonna give you time to get your home on the market, get it under contract and get it closed. If this attorney is willing to push out the sale date, because that 120-day timeline that we saw is not set in stone.
Mm.
They could push it out 90 days if they wanted,
Mhm.
right?
Or
Or you can
4
tell
years,
Margaret
like
to
you
go,
said.
or you can tell Margaret, go file for bankruptcy if she hasn't done it already. And that's gonna stop the foreclosure dead in its tracks, and it's gonna give you time to get the home on the market.
Mhm.
But now you've got to work with the bankruptcy court to get permission to sell the house. Right?
Mhm.
But yeah, so Margaret calls you, okay, I can list your house for 160. You're gonna, the bank's gonna lose 40, so we've got to do a short sale.
Mhm.
So I call the attorney, attorney's like, yeah, that's fine, we'll give you 90 days. Great. List the house, get a contract, start the short sale process. All right, short sale process is you're gonna have to get what's called borrower's authorization from the lender. Right, and this gives you permission to talk to the mortgage company on behalf of the borrower, your seller. So once you have borrower's authorization, you're gonna call the lender, right, and you're gonna say, hey, I'm gonna talk to loss mitigation. Because, I'm sure they know this thing's in foreclosure, right? I need to talk to loss mitigation. Who do I send this borrower's authorization to? They say fax secure. You send it there. A couple of days goes by, they've processed the authorization. Now you can call and you can talk to the mortgage company on behalf of your client.
It's like a power of attorney, I think.
Kind of, yeah. Right, and then you say, okay, lender, we need to do a short sale. Right? What all do you need in your short sale package? Because part of it is the lender is going to research and make sure that you're actually in need. You actually need a short sale. Because they're not gonna agree to take a $40,000 loss if you've got $100 in the bank. Right?
Right.
So they're gonna say, send me your bank statements, send me your pay stubs, right? Write me a letter as to why you need a short sale. Send me your tax returns. Because if your tax returns show you make $1 million a year, I'm not gonna take a $40,000 loss,
Mhm.
right? You need to prove to the bank, this person really needs a short sale. They don't have any other options.
Mhm.
Right? So you sent in all the documents. Here's why we need a short sale, right? They'll send you a checklist, right? We want this, right? It's a grip of work. It's a lot. It's a grip of work.
I have not heard that phrase in so long.
It's like,
You just brought it back.
So,
It's a grip of work. I love that.
so, you've sent in all this stuff, right? And while you've been compiling all this paperwork and you sent it to the lender, this home's on the market and you get an offer. Right? Can you accept that offer? Here's an offer for 160.
No, you probably have to get permission from the lender. 'Cause
Do you?
the house is collateral for that. I don't know.
Well, not yet, because it's not foreclosure. Or no, because he said,
Well, yeah,
wait,
isn't that the whole point? I mean, you got their permission to get time to go on the
after
market.
the sale of the house.
Do you have
they-
short sale approval yet or no?
You've just sent in the documentation, right?
So if you do not have short sale approval yet, should you take that offer?
Well, Michael, you could take the offer with with that contingency that the bank has to.
Contingent upon short sale approval.
There you go. Even if you had short sale approval, I would still make my contract contingent on short sale approval.
Can
Right,
you lose approval?
sometimes.
Grandma dies and gives them $100,000, you think they're still gonna wanna take?
Right.
Nope. It's kind of like your bank financing, you're approved today, and if your situation changes, it could not be approved.
So because you guys are a member of this office, right? We have an attorney on retainer that prepares a lot of these clauses for you, okay? So, you know, I would put these into the contract.
First old parts in the back, read it.
Okay. Yeah, right. I'm up front, I can hardly read it.
So I would write the dates, right? So instead of putting in a hard date, you can put in this term, short sale approval. So you can do SSA plus, like your close date, right, would be SSA plus 30. Okay, so from when we get short sale approval, we'll close 30 days after that. Right, this way you're not always watching these dates and deadlines. I don't want to do an inspection on a house that doesn't have short sale approval.
Right.
Right, why would the buyer go through that expense if we don't have short sale approval? Right, so you definitely want to use this clause. It's also a short sale addendum. Right, so this short sale addendum says, you know, it's signed by all parties. When are you going to send the initial package back to the lender? So the lender sent you the checklist of everything they need, right? When are you gonna, so, and now you're under contract, when are you gonna send all the documents and submit to the bank? So now that you have an offer and you're under contract, you can tell the lender, okay, I've got an offer, we're listed at 160, I got an offer at 150. So instead of losing 40, I actually need you to lose 50. Right? Your short sale addendum to that contract is gonna state, I'm gonna send the bank everything they need within, say, 5 days
Of closing,
of going under contract.
of going under contract.
Right? So 5 days from MEC of the contract, because you're only going to use this if you get an offer. Right? So that's why I asked, you're on the market, you're compiling all these documents and you got an offer. You got an offer for 150, do you take it or not? You can
Yes,
take it with the
contingent on-
contingency
Yeah.
and use this addendum.
Okay.
Okay? So seller's consent, so the seller says, okay, who's going to get to know all my business? Right? And I would just say maybe other lien creditors, right? I don't know if the buyer needs to know all your business, right? Short sale acceptance deadline. I would probably do 2 months out, right? Depending on how fast you're in communication with the bank, you're gonna ask the bank, how long does it take you guys to approve short sales? Right, in 2008, 2010, some of these banks were like, yeah, it takes us 90 days to approve a short sale, because there were so many.
Right.
Right, market tanked, there were so many. Like it takes us 90 days to get you approval, right? Right now, if you ask for a short sale, it might be 30 days.
So that's the deadline that you put here, 30 days from your contract date?
Or whatever the bank says, right? You want to give yourself enough time so you can work and get approval. Okay? And then these things are important. So early termination. While I'm waiting for this short sale to be approved, let's say you're representing the buyer. Do you want your buyer to be committed to this short sale or to be able to continue to look? So if that's the case, both buyer and seller have the right to terminate the contract by written notice to the other party, as long as this is received before short sale acceptance. Once you get short sale acceptance, your normal dates and deadline in the contract kick in.
Okay.
Right, you do an inspection turns out real bad, kill the deal, right? But before before your contract deadline dates kick in, you've put in 60 days under this deadline. Do you want to be able to get out? Now, keep in mind, seller can get out too,
Right.
right? Seller might be like, I just got an offer for 160 and you're buying it for 150. Guess what? I'm killing the deal with you and I'm going under contract with you. They can do that. What do you think your primary role as a real estate broker is when you're doing a short sale? Well, let me back up. What's your primary role as a listing agent when you're representing a normal seller? What's the goal for the seller?
Get the most.
Get them the most amount of money possible. What's your goal when you're representing a seller that's doing a short sale?
Same thing, give them the most amount of money possible, right?
Or short them.
I would change that to
Short them.
minimize the loss that the bank is taking.
That's it.
Because that also minimizes what the bank will go after them
Yeah.
for, or their 1099 for,
Right.
IRS.
They're a lot more willing to work with you if you're trying to save their loss.
So when you're on the buy side, normal contract, put in there, you know, I would use SSA dates and deadlines, send over this addendum, and you can make an offer on a short sale, right? The short sale might not have even been started yet. This listing agent might just be waiting for an offer. Because he's like, if I don't get an offer, why am I gonna do all this work on compiling my seller's financials, and this and that, if we don't even get the house sold? They can do that. Somebody who's like, I wanna be prepared. Let's start the process. We all do business differently, right?
So if the bank does agree to the short sale, do they agree to a certain amount?
Sometimes they say, we won't lose 40, but we'll lose 35. We want your seller to find 15 grand somewhere.
So
Sometimes,
what if you're like, okay, well, I sold it, it was 10 shy of what, you know, we hoped for. Would you then go back and be like, okay, instead of only taking a $40,000 loss, you'll take a $50,000 loss?
yeah,
And at what point can they say yes or no? That deadline date, the short sale acceptance date, right?
that's your goal, is to get short sale approval by that deadline date. And if you don't have it, you do an amend extend pushing out short sale acceptance deadline. And you see a buyer who's gonna hang in there with you. Buyer might be like, F this, tired of waiting.
Oh, so-and-so listed their house and it's just as good and I don't have to wait. Right. So, speak to our commissions.
Yeah.
What's typical around a short sale, because, you know, what they're paying us, we're out of this settlement sheet, remember?
Yeah.
So that's the money that the bank now doesn't get, because they're gonna pay us, they're paying us.
So often, I mean, realistically, you know, the loss to the bank is more than 50 grand. Right, because if the bank is owed 200, we're under contract for 150, you still have commissions, closing costs, title insurance. The bank's probably gonna lose 80, let's say, right? Because y'all still need to get paid, right? We're not doing all this work for free,
No, we ain't.
right? The buyer's agent isn't bringing their buyer if they're not getting paid,
Yes.
right?
That's right.
So realistic, so what you're gonna, you send the bank a net sheet at a price of 150, bank, this is the amount of money you're gonna get, which means you're gonna lose this much money. And the bank oftentimes comes back and says, I see you listed it for 6%, we're only gonna pay 5. Sometimes even less, sometimes we'll only pay 4, which means each side only gets 2%.
And wouldn't you recommend, I mean, I would, but concur or not, but start at 6.
Oh, no, start
Don't
at
start at 5, don't be like, right, having mercy on this seller, because it's really the bank that you're working for.
Right.
To some degree, the seller to it.
But that can happen.
Because that
Have a
can
lot
happen,
more
and
revenue
you don't
starts
wanna
at
be
7%.
down in the 3 suddenly.
Yeah.
But yeah, banks do come back and
Stick it to
say,
the man.
we're only gonna pay you this much. Sometimes it's, we're only gonna pay 3 grand each side.
Might be a flat fee.
No. If I've gotta eat it in the shorts by 80 grand, I'm not gonna pay you 15.
Right. And then at that point, can you choose to not take the listing?
Sure. You could say, hey,
You should
stop.
still take it,
You could say, hey,
because some
stop.
money is better than no money.
That's your
And-
business decision, right?
As far as I see it, for me, some money is better than no money, and the goal is to help the seller.
Or you could be like, hey, seller, they're only paying me this much money. You gotta find a way to pay me the delta. Even that gets challenging, because the lender's like, if the seller's bringing any money to closing, guess
In
what?
my pocket.
Yeah.
Not yours.
The bank wants it. I'm the one losing 80 grand here.
Yeah.
Right? So every bank operates differently. But that's where it's important to start your short sale early and get that process, get everything submitted as soon as possible. Right? Because you'll get assigned to somebody at the bank, and they're gonna be familiar with your file. Right? So this way, when you go under contract, you can say, here's the contract, here's an updated net sheet. I need approval, and you'll be able to get approval in a week versus 60 days. Some banks are like, we won't even look at it until you have a full package, you're under contract. Because they're like, we've just got so many. Why am I gonna look at these short sales that are sold yet? When I've got a stack this high
That are sold.
that are sold.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the lender, but I would start that and start building that relationship with whoever at the bank. So you know, you can say, hey, how do you want this? Right,
So in your extensive experience, I mean, granted, we saw a lot of this 2008-9. What are kind of like the red flags that we should be looking at to be prepared for something like this to be our reality?
I would say realistically, you should search every, you know, when you're representing a seller.
Yeah.
You're gonna order an O&E. That O&E is gonna show if a notice of election and demand's been filed. If that's been filed, you can talk to your seller like, hey, what is this? This says you're in foreclosure. And you start having that conversation.
This is like a whole different skill set to have as an agent than what we are currently doing on a day-to-day.
Because you didn't need it until now.
Right? Do you think that this is something we're gonna start seeing more and more
You better
often?
believe it. We've got 2 right now. Haven't had any for 10 years.
Right?
And my team's got 2 deals right now where the seller's in foreclosure.
Is that
Well,
because-
one seller's in foreclosure, one seller hasn't made his payment for 9 months.
He's heading out.
I'm like, it's coming,
Yeah, how is it not already? Yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah.
Right? So for you guys as listing agents, when you're representing the seller, an O&E is gonna at least give you that head start. Has a notice of election demand been filed? If yes, well then, what are we looking at? How much do you know? What do we owe the bank? Is this a short sale? Or like Wyoming might be able to put his home on the market, sell it for $550, walk with 80 grand, let's say,
Right.
right? But he's just been stalling this process out for so long, you know, it's just been eating up a lot of his equity. But your seller might be like Wyoming, like he owed what, 355? Sell it for 500, well, 355 a couple of years ago, maybe it was worth 450 then instead of 550. He still could have sold it, paid commissions, walked away with 70 grand. And didn't jack up his credit. But instead, he's been dragging this thing out, he's got a late payment every month.
Yep.
For the
Yeah.
4 years. Right?
Yeah. That's gotta be shit.
But it lets you start having that conversation. I see there's a notice of election demand filed. All right, we gotta dig deeper. What do you owe? Right? What's going on here? We need to order a payoff or whatever. So we really understand how much debt is on the property versus what you're selling it for. Okay? This only addresses what we just talked about, addresses being a buyer's agent and how to make an offer on a short sale, right? So you can use SSA dates and deadlines, and you gotta use the short sale addendum. What if you take a listing that needs to be a short sale? Then there's an addendum to the listing agreement that says this is a short sale, right? That you're gonna need to add to your listing agreement. Okay. And as you're doing your listing and you did an O&E and you saw a notice of election demand, it now changes what type of purchase contract you can take as the listing agent. So what do I mean by that?
Yeah, was it?
So there's something in Colorado in 2010, I think, during that time frame when the market crashed, 2008, 2009, 2010. They found a lot of people were getting their equity taken from them. So just like Ryan on Wyoming, he's got about 100 grand, right? Well, you would have investors come to them and be like, look, I'll give you $5,000, walk away, sign the house over me. There's 100 grand equity in the house,
Right,
but maybe Ryan doesn't realize that.
right.
You got this guy who comes in like, yo, I'm gonna save you.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll pay for you to move. I'll give you 5 grand cash. All you gotta do is sign your house over with me. And it still happens today, right? But so the state of Colorado came up with the Colorado Foreclosure Protection Act. So you as the listing agent, you know your listing's in foreclosure and you get an offer. If you get an offer from an owner occupant, none of the Colorado Foreclosure Protection Act applies. If you get an offer from an investor, it needs to be on a Colorado Foreclosure Protection Act contract. If you're representing a buyer and you're making an offer on a house that's in foreclosure, your buyer's an investor, you gotta use the Colorado Foreclosure Protection Act contract. If your buyer's gonna live in the house, nothing changes, regular contract. And basically, it's the same contract, but it gives the seller a way to kill the deal. Okay, so I mean, the contract is basically the same. Okay, so then you get this additional language that you don't see normally in the regular purchase and sale contract. Right? So one of it is the seller's principal language of Spanish. If your seller's Spanish speaking, right? You need to give them this warning notice that they have the right to cancel this contract in their native language of Spanish or Vietnamese or whatever. Right?
Full house, I know.
You have to give them 3 business days. So it's highlighted right here. Specify the date and time as the earlier of 12 midnight on the 3rd business day after seller signs the contract. Okay. So you've got to put 3 days after you go under contract here. Of the seller can kill the deal within those 3 days. Because the seller might be like, well, I'm only selling this house for $420. I could be selling the house for $540. Right? And so this investor stands to benefit. Maybe I change my mind and I kill the deal.
So you're giving them 3 days to kind of do some homework and figure out if they're getting bamboozled.
Right. You also have to include all these documents. Right, seller warning, you might be getting your equity scammed. Right, this investor might be taking advantage of it, they might be taking your equity. Okay. Notice of cancellation, all they have to do is sign the notice of cancellation and they can kill the deal. So here's your notice of cancellation and your seller warning. So you'll fill this out. Seller can sign, I hereby cancel this transaction, they sign it, send it back to the buyer, pay that. So it's just another disclosure. Are you selling your home for the right amount? Right? Does this deal make sense, or is somebody screwing you out of your equity? So that's something to keep in mind as we go into a market that's shifting, and you encounter somebody that's in foreclosure and they list the house. If the house is in foreclosure and you get an offer from an investor, you've got to use a different contract. You've got to use different. You've got to add these extra disclosures to the contract.
Like I was in real estate school 2 years ago. I don't remember.
I bet you
anything about this.
99% of the realtors out there right now don't know this. I mean, we've even come across deals, it didn't happen often, but like, say 2015, 2016, we had a buyer who was buying a home that was in foreclosure and didn't realize it, right? Like, listing agent didn't even know about this. But my client was buying the home and he was gonna buy it as a rental, so he's an investor. title work came out, title work said foreclosure has to be stopped. And I was like, well, we've got to redo all the contracts now.
Right, wow.
Listing agents, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
What are you talking about? It's just amazing, all the stuff that they don't teach us in real estate school.
So, and that might happen, right? You might be on the buyer side. You don't- Unless you pull an O and E on the house before you make an offer, which nobody ever
Nobody does
does.
that.
It doesn't make
As a
sense.
buyer, right.
Right. But title work comes out and it says this thing's in foreclosure. If your client's an investor, you better do something, because if all of a sudden that deal closes and the seller's like, I got screwed. Right? Gwen screwed me. Gwen brought her investor client, took $100 grand of my equity. Guess what the real estate commission is? Nailing the realtors. But if you had all the proper paperwork, maybe your 3 days.
We've got notices and not top of notices.
Yeah.
I bet you in this office, you guys in this room and on Zoom are the only ones that now know about this. Maybe a few other people that have been in the business long enough.
Gone.
Our keeps us.
She's been to a few markets.
So any questions before we get this wrapped up?
So many, but I don't know what they are right now.
I'm calling you when I got my first foreclosure.
Oh, good information.
I talked about borrower authorization. We've got the seller authorization here. So you can have them fill this out, and then you can send this to the mortgage company and say, hey, mortgage company, this gives me, authorization to talk to you.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So it's not a form that like, hey, where do I find this and stuff like that. Sometimes a lender will have their own that they want you and borrower to sign. Oftentimes something like this, they'll take.
If that was the case, would we take that to our attorney and make sure like that this is, or is that?
I don't think
okay?
that's necessary.
Okay.
It basically says you, Joe Schmo, let's say on Wyoming, Ryan, you, Ryan, authorize Lisa to talk to us on your behalf. It's nothing crazy. I think if it is crazy, yeah, we should talk to an attorney. But oftentimes, I mean, it's pretty straightforward,
Okay.
and I don't think that's necessary. But you definitely want to make sure that if you know this is a short sale, you do not sign the contract or have your seller accept an offer without the short sale contingency stuff in there. Because now you're committing your seller to sell the home for 150 when he owes 200. And the buyer would be like, well, I guess you better find a way to come up with 50 grand. Because none of our contracts state that this is a short sale and that there's a contingency here, and your seller is screwed. Guess what? You're filing an E&O claim, so they can pay the 50 grand because your seller ain't got it, and you don't want to write that check.
Yeah, yeah. That's important.
So if you know your listing's a short sale, don't accept an offer unless it has short sale contingency language in there.
Okay.
It's good. Thank you, Michael.
Got it?
You're smarter.
Yeah.
Itches are bigger.
So it's on the.
But my food needs brain.